and gentlemen, welcome to Lytchett Minster School. We've got a very exciting general election coming up, a momentous one, I would say. So it's great that so many of you have come this evening, and we're obviously going to hear firsthand what the candidates are planning for our country over the next 4 years or so. A massive thank you to the candidates for putting themselves in this position this evening. I think it's going to be a really exciting evening. I'm hoping it's going to be lively, passionate. I hope it's also going to be reasonably orderly and certainly civil. I have a huge amount of respect for the four candidates, and I hope you have that, even if you disagree strongly with their views.
Hi, my name's Ruben. I'm a student here at Lytchett, and my question is that as an MP, your job would be to implement policy that affects the whole country. When 16 and 17-year-olds have to follow laws they have no say in, they're forced into an education system that they have no control over. They rely on the NHS as much as anyone else in society. And they pay taxes without any say in where that money goes. How is that not an affront to democracy that we have to follow these rules without having the right to vote?
Joe.
Thank you very much for that question. I don't know if you're aware, but the Labour Party is 100% in agreement with you. And when we are elected into government, one of the first things we will be doing is giving 16-year-olds the vote. And we will also be making sure you get fair remuneration for the work you do. And we'll be introducing a minimum wage of £10 for 16-year-olds plus, because I don't think you should be discriminated against just because of your age.
Thank you, Joe. Mike?
Thank you.
You could say, well, if not 16, why not 15? Why not 14? We all know young people who are perfectly mature and know their own minds and are perfectly able to make up their own minds at age 14 or 15. So why have that arbitrary threshold or cutoff? But what is most interesting, one of the best parts of my job, when I've been your MP since 2015, has been visiting schools and inviting schools to visit Parliament. I bounce this question back on our students. And it is very interesting that there is not a unanimous view, even amongst 16 and 17-year-olds, that they should have the vote. It's almost always 50-50. And if you ask those who have just turned 18 whether the year below them should have the vote, you get a very interesting answer. There has to be a cut-off somewhere. 18 is the age of maturity, and that, in my view, is where it should stay.
Thank you, Michael. Vicky?
Well, I completely disagree with that. I think... There are thousands and thousands of 16 and 17-year-olds who have proved themselves to be more than capable of making really sensible decisions. As you say, a lot of them are working or they're in apprenticeships, they're driving cars at 17, they're on motorbikes at 16, they're paying taxes. They can have all sorts of relationships which require a mature adult approach. But I think it is about a balanced approach. So for me, I would introduce, and the Lib Dems would introduce voting for 16 and 17-year-olds, but it would come in conjunction with education around politics, give you the education, reform elections completely so we get a different voting form so everybody's vote counts. And make sure that you all have the right to a curriculum for life so you're ready for adult life.
Thank you very much. Natalie Carswell.
Yeah, you're 16, 17-year-olds. You are getting the best education and you know what you're doing. And I, with the Green Party, absolutely would give you guys a vote. We're also talking about you guys being able to represent yourselves in Parliament as well, which is quite radical. But I think we have a real problem in politics where it seems to be skewed towards older people, and we're not looking at future generations. And a lot of our policies are about having somebody actually in Parliament specifically for young people. And you guys should be there. You should be part of the conversation. And I so wish that you guys had had the vote when it came to Brexit. You should have done. Absolutely. It's your policy.
My question is, given the fact that the electorate are much better educated about the Brexit issue now in 2019, and given the increasing complexities and the fact that it threatens the breakup of the UK, is it time to go back to the people for a second referendum on Brexit?
Vicky Slade.
It absolutely is. So we have been campaigning for 3.5 years for a people's vote. I've been up to London for all of the main people's votes with my family, with my friends, and absolutely that is the way forward. Now, just to clarify for those of you that have seen our party policy, if you actually read the letter, it says we would stop Brexit if Joe Swinson became Prime Minister. We would stop it outright because that would have actually been a massive swing over to the Lib Dems from 20 to 325. If you read on, it says, in all other circumstances, we continue to fight for the people's vote, which we have brought forward 17 times in Parliament. 17 times over 3 years, we have tried to get the people's vote through. We believe that actually we all deserve to see this deal, which has been changed several times already. It's probably going to change again. If you listen to what Boris Johnson says, I don't believe a word of where he is at the moment, and where we will be at the end of January will be completely different. I spoke to a gentleman on the door today in Beer Regis who's from Northern Ireland, and he said there is no way that the people of Northern Ireland, the politicians of Northern Ireland, will want to be treated differently from everyone else. So he believes that deal is going to go. We deserve to have the people's vote so we can make the general election about things we all care about, like climate, like the NHS, like education, like human rights, and actually let's deal with Brexit through a people's vote.
Joe Oldell, please.
Yeah, I think the matter is increasingly urgent, especially when you take a closer look at Boris Johnson's deal. He had the opportunity to extend that beyond the end of 2020. He could have negotiated that, but in fact he didn't. And there's an important reason for that. It's because if we haven't agreed to a trade deal by the end of 2020, there's a loophole in his deal saying we will crash out with a no deal. And we all know that that's what Boris Johnson really wants. And so I think it's even more urgent now that we elect a party that can unite the country and that will take that vote back to the people. And if I can just say, because some people think there's a lack of clarity with what Labour's offering, I would argue that it's nuanced as opposed to unclear. But we are trying to unite the country. We are in an entrenched state. We've got this side and that side, they are entrenched. They are not moving forward, and we have to move forward for the very reasons spoken about, for your future education, for the NHS, for schools. And so the Labour Party is proposing that within 6 months, we offer 2 things back to the people. One of them is the option to remain. And like you say, given all the new information, that's quite a likely outcome. It's certainly what I campaigned for, along with, back in the, when was that, 16. So it's certainly what I campaigned for. But we'll also try to unite the country by organising a deal that means we have a trading relationship with Europe, that means we have protected workers' rights, that means we protect the environment, that means we get all the great things that you get from Europe, and that we have freedom of movement, and that the NHS people are protected, they keep their jobs, there's no discussion about that. But that we can say to the people who voted to leave, we have listened, we're not just dismissing you, we are going back in an adult way and offering you both choices. And that is something we have promised to do within 6 months of being elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Natalie.
Right, so the Green Party have always wanted a second referendum. They've always said we need a confirmatory referendum because you've probably heard this before, it's like buying a house, you put an offer in and then you get surveys done to see if it's actually a house worth buying. And, you know, we've got all the information about Brexit now, we know what it actually involves. And, you know, Caroline Lucas, who's the one MP, Green MP in Parliament, after the Brexit vote, she went up and down the country to find out why people voted leave. And so much of it was about austerity and about giving the government a bloody nose and all that. It's such a sad thing that this country has come to this, because I would feel, as a Remainer, I would feel so much happier, not happy, happier having a second vote. And if the result was leave again, at least I can face people who voted leave and say, you voted for this. Right now, when people voted leave back in 2016, however much you say you know what you voted for, it's very often different to the person next to you who voted for Leave and the person next to you who voted for Leave. So there was no united Leave plan. Now, we have a deal on the table. It's worse than Theresa May's, and somehow it got voted through. I don't understand that, but yeah, we have a deal. It's on the table. We should have the option to remain now that people know. And I think for Leavers and Remainers, it is so important that we have that confirmatory vote. So we know, we really know. Remainers will know that the Leavers have voted for this. Because too many people will come up and go, well, I didn't vote for this. Well, do you know what I mean? I want to know that you voted for this.
Thank you. Michael Thomason.
Thank you for the question. There's no lack of clarity about the Conservative Party position, and I'm afraid that the short answer to your question is no. I don't think it would be right for there to be a second referendum. Not many of you will be surprised by that. I voted to leave, but in fact the most powerful argument comes from those who voted to remain in the European Union and still recognise that the democratic decision was taken. For me, it doesn't matter, actually, whether you voted leave or remain back in the referendum in 2016. It's no longer a question of leave or remain. It's a question of democracy. You either believe in democracy or you don't. We were told that this was a once-in-a-generation opportunity to vote. We were told that that vote would be enacted, and it must be enacted. That's the whole reason that we are having this election, is because Parliament has been gridlocked. I just want to I want to just ask questions one at a time. I want to pick up 2 points that were made. One allegation that Boris Johnson wants no deal. That is utter rubbish. If that were the case, he would not have strained every sinew, not only to get a deal, but actually to... People laugh, but they were told. But people said that Boris Johnson would not be able to renegotiate. Boris Johnson would not be able to reopen the backstop. He would not be able to get... He would not be able to get it through Parliament. He got it through the initial stage at second reading. If Boris Johnson wanted no deal, why would he have gone to the effort to do that? And he has repeated that that deal is oven ready. One other short point. Joe quite rightly mentioned workers' rights. You do not have to be a member of the European Union in order to have good, solid workers' rights. We in this country have higher standards when it comes to maternity leave, when it comes to statutory pay, when it comes to sick leave. We have higher standards than the EU. It is up to our own sovereign parliament to pass the laws, and we already have enacted higher standards when it comes to workers' rights than they have in the EU. It's a question of democracy, it's a question of sovereignty. The decision was made. We need to leave and move on to our other priorities.
Okay.
But I would say to Michael that you're in the wrong party, because I've seen the man Boris Johnson, and not only his personal life. Amber Rudd said he's not the sort of person I'd want my daughter taken home by. But also the way he dealt with the London Bridge, the London Garden Bridge, his dealings as the Foreign Secretary, bluffing his way through that, the alliances he makes with other parties and then breaks them, and democracy itself. I feel that we need to be absolutely clear that we are supporting people who are integral, and not people who say dreadful racist remarks and then bluff it away. I believe that Boris Johnson is a fraud.
I completely agree with your point about integrity and honesty. And what is a great shame in the House of Commons is there's far too much. Actually, there's more unanimity than you just see on a Wednesday at PMQs. But there is far too much Yahoo politics. I believe that everyone goes into politics out of the right motives. And I don't believe that Labour Party bad, Conservative Party good. I think, in fact, in the House of Commons, up to now, the vast majority go into politics for the right reasons, because they want to make a difference for their local area that they live, because they want to make a difference for the country that they are so passionate about. You're absolutely right. It's a fundamental point of our politics. If we do not have integrity and honesty as politicians, then we are as nothing. And I do not claim that the Conservative Party is the only party full of integrity and honesty. I believe all politicians go into politics for the right reasons because they want to make a difference.
Yeah, I really find it difficult when people defend people that it is indefensible. You know, for the Prime Minister to have described as humbug the concerns that people have about the threats and the death of Joe Cox, to see Jacob Rees-Mogg lying down on the green benches, your boss lying down on the green benches, for goodness sake, where is the respect for the job? And it isn't just, you know, one-off comments. You know, there are 25 Conservative councillors, one of which is from Bournemouth, who are currently suspended for Islamophobia. We've got LGBT comments being made by Boris Johnson, you know, attacking people who you know, are gay. We've got issues of race. He's abusive towards women. He lied to the Queen. Nobody has ever lied to the Queen. So I would really like you, Michael, to actually stand up and say that that man is not fit to be Prime Minister of this great country.
But I do want to pick up two very important points. One is the accusation that Boris Johnson is a racist. I encourage you, I implore you, don't just read the headlines, don't just read the quotes. Read the whole article. The article, sir, that I think you and Vicky were possibly referring to. If you
More
look
than
at
one.
it,
Not just one.
If you look at it and read the detail, it was a defence of liberal democracy.
I wasn't referring to the letterboxes. I was referring to other things which I would not say out loud because they are racist, about men from Africa, about the treatment of gay men, and about the treatment of women. It's not just that letterbox comment. There are lots and lots of them. I have a whole dossier. I'm happy to share them with you.
I would encourage each and every person in this room to read that dossier, to read those articles in full, because you will see that, in fact, it was in defence of a liberal democracy. It was poking fun of those who, in turn, are racist. So, no,
That's
you need
the one
to.
I was
You need
thinking
to
of.
Just as much as you shouldn't take anyone else's written words out of context, please don't take my spoken words out of context either. Let me finally pick up on the word.